Hi, I'm Don.
And I'm Lori. And we're
Talkin
Divorce. When divorce is on the horizon, a lot of people believe court is the only option, but it isn't. We're talking about mediation, how it works, who it's for, and how it can help families move forward with clarity and dignity. Joining me is Gary Kierney, a certified family law specialist with decades of experience, and the Honorable Mary Lou Byrne, who served nearly 19 years on the bench and now helps families resolve disputes outside of court through mediation. Well, Don, I am so excited for our show today, and Gary and Mary Lou, with your expertise and 45 years of practicing family law in Pasadena, it's amazing.
Right.
So, Don, I'm going to let you share with our viewers and what we're going to do with this special episode.
Yeah, so what we want to do for this episode and the next one, we're going to call it a two-part series. We're going to call it Having the Spirit of Cooperation When Going Through a Family Law Case. And it sounds very simple, but it's not. And we're going to explain why people don't engage in trying to settle cases and then the benefits of doing so. And with us, fortunately, we've got two of the best people I could even imagine. Yes. So I need to talk a little bit about who our guests are today, because they're personal friends of mine and also professional friends of mine. So we'll first start off with Mary Lou. Mary Lou just recently retired from the bench. And I met her by appearing in front of her many years ago as a family law attorney, looking up at her and making sure that I was behaving myself and that I was representing my client properly and being respectful to the court at the same time, and hopefully I was okay.
Always were.
Okay. She's got a fascinating background, and Gary, I've known Gary for a long, long time. He's been practicing, as you said, about 45 years in family law, and Gary is a certified family law specialist. And so, believe it or not, the two of them together now work for alternative resolution centers. They're a mediation firm, and what they do is they provide mediation for family law people. And this is unique, okay? So Lori, get this. Never in my years of experience of practicing family law have I ever seen a team do it. And they have a team approach, which is going to be really interesting, because you're going to have the benefit, if you're lucky enough to mediate with these two, of having somebody that sat on the bench that knows kind of what the thinking of a judicial officer is at any issue that could come up. And then Gary, who's got that incredible experience of knowing, what plays in Peoria, because that's part of mediation. So thank you for coming, and I look forward to having a robust discussion with you.
Yeah, so let's just start down with the real basics. And what is mediation in today's environment and everyday life?
Well, mediation is an opportunity for couples who decide to go through a divorce to really take the bull by the horns and decide what the outcome for their divorce would be. So they go in, they sit down with a mediator who will help them understand the law, help them make certain selections, so that when they come out at the end and they have an agreement, then that agreement is entirely theirs and not an agreement someone tells them that they have to abide by. And the chances of that agreement being fulfilled is much higher because they're both on board, as opposed to a judge saying, well, this is what's going to happen, and one of them doesn't like that, so they're not really going to participate in that. So I think mediation is a good way to go if at all possible, and it's a lot cheaper than going through the court to
So Gary, when you say that it's a lot cheaper, I think a lot of our audience might say, you don't really mean that, right, Gary? Because as a divorce attorney, you want to have all the problems so that you could bill the client, you could prolong the case, and you must just hate it when people get along. Would that be the case?
No, that's not at all the case. I think as a divorce attorney, you're somewhat interested in helping people get through the process and coming out the end of the process knowing that the settlement is really fair for both sides. And going into a contested trial, you never know what's going to happen there. You may do well and you may do terribly. So it's better to have a system that the individuals can select the outcome with your assistance, so they know what the parameters are, and then once they select that outcome, it becomes a judgment of divorce.
Yeah, you know what I found is that after a trial, I still sometimes get unhappy clients, even though I know that we've did a good job and they had a good result. In mediation, I have much happier clients coming out of there. Yeah.
Well, they're happy because it's their decision and not some decision imposed upon them.
Right. Now, Mary Lou, you used to encourage people to settle the cases when you were up there on the bench, and can you speak of what the process is like, trying to get people to do mediation, as a judicial officer?
Well, absolutely. In fact, when I was first assigned to my family law assignment, the supervising judge of the family law department said, you want to settle your cases because anything that the parties decide together about their case is going to be better than anything that you put on them, you as the judge, because they know their case, they know their family, they know their circumstances. And that's what I used to tell the people. I'm like, I just met you, okay? All I know is what you and your lawyers are telling me. You know the details. You know your case best. You've got the imagination to come up with a creative solution. So do that. And in fact, when I was going through my own divorce, my philosophy was, do I have to give up some things as part of a settlement? Okay, I would rather spend my money buying new stuff than spend my money on lawyers to fight about the stuff that I have already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as a judicial officer, I don't mean to offend you, but there are certain things while you're sitting on the bench that you can do.
Right.
You have all the power in the world, and of course in family court, judicial officers have immense discretion, right? But there are a lot of things that family law judges can't do, right? There's some things, and I was thinking about some of them as one is they can't change the law, right? So they can't give people results that the law doesn't, allow for, right? Even though some people want you to go in there and do that. The other thing is that judges don't know the case as well as the people do, kind of what Gary was saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you try to get a feel for everything, but do you really know these people well enough to be able to dictate their lives?
Right, exactly. And the other thing we can't do is, for example, we can't force a teenager to adhere to a visitation schedule that the teenager doesn't like and the primary custodial parent is against. Right? I can certainly make all the orders in the world, but can I make that teenager get in the car? No, I can't. So custody is one really key issue where it's so important to have everybody agree, right? And you're right about the law. The parties can agree to whatever they want, right? I used to tell people, whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not, you have a prenup, and your prenup is the divorce laws of the state of California. But you don't have to adhere to that if you don't think that's in the interest of your family. So by all means, figure out what's best for your family.
I think one thing that people don't realize is the court has no discretion when they're dividing property.
Right.
The court must divide it equally. So the only thing the court is interested in is the value of a particular asset. And there are innumerable reasons why you don't want to divide every asset equally for the family.
Because sentimental reasons?
Mental reasons and let's say just the house. And we've had situations where the house stays in the family and then the parents move in and out of the house, so the children stay in the same house. I mean, you can't do that with a court order.
Yeah, I've had cases where people have decided to divide it unequally. There's one case where it was a LAPD police officer sitting in my conference room. We started talking about his retirement plan. He started crying.
Right.
And my client's like, let's go out and talk, Don. And we came back and we agreed not to take, one half of the retirement plan. So there are a lot of things can be done in equity, right? So as mediators, well, maybe we should start this off. Can you tell us about the approach that you will have as a team if one of my clients come to you and say, we want to mediate? Do you do it where both parties come, or both mediators come into the room together, or do you keep separate rooms? Or what's the philosophy, and how do you perceive that as happening, to get a successful mediation?
Well, I think the first step, and I'm assuming the parties are there without attorneys. So the first step that we would like to take is have an education of what the law is, so the parties understand the parameters, so that when they're negotiating, they know how to negotiate particular issues. So that would be a first step, to just give them a class on divorce law.
So for example, your police officer, it's important for him to understand that if he goes to court, the judge is going to divide his pension. The judge is going to give the former spouse a share of that pension. So that's important for him to know, so that he's doesn't go into the mediation with some ideas that are unrealistic.
Do you normally start the mediation process putting the people in the same room, or would you prefer to have them in separate rooms?
Well, I started by going through the parameters of what a divorce is. So they're both in the same room, and they can ask me whatever questions they want in front of the other individual.
But then when you get into the nitty-gritty, we like to have them separate.
Right.
We like to shuttle diplomacy.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to share this with you. Is coming out of law school, learning about how to settle a case or negotiate, the fine art of negotiating, getting to yes, and all this stuff that you learn in law school. So I was feeling a little insecure about the fact that I'd get into these settlement conferences and not come up with anything, and a lot of times personalities were getting involved. And if I tried to be civil with the other side in the same room, frequently my client would really hold it against me afterwards. Why were you so nice? How come you, because they were perceiving it as a court proceeding. So that's why I love coming to mediation, because the mediator will do all the work, and you'll basically keep people separated and not let the personalities get involved, right?
Right. I mean, we've had mediations where this is where the parties are represented, but if the parties are represented, it's not uncommon for the parties to not even see each other at all during the whole course of the mediation. And we get it done, and often that really, believe it or not, that speeds things up and smooths things out.
Yeah. Gary, what's the longest that you've been in a mediation session in your whole career? Days?
No, usually a day, because if you are going to get it to a resolution, it may start off slowly, and then it builds because you usually start with some easy issues, so they get the momentum, and think, oh, we can do this easy issue, let's divide the toys or something. And then you move to the harder issues, so they get a sense of how they're empowered to divide these things, which helps them reach a resolution.
Yeah, I think the mediations that I've participated on behalf of my clients usually start at about 10 in the morning, and on one, it was with ARC, it ended at 11 o'clock at night.
And you walked out with an agreement.
We did, but barely. And I'm going to talk to you about the psychology of mediation, because
that's huge.
The one thing about mediation, I feel, is that sometimes people feel like they didn't get their day in court afterwards, because there's a catharsis thing that goes on in people going to court, even if they lose, right? They want somebody to hear them out, and they want to kind of bang a little bit, right? They want to get that fight. But I noticed in mediation that even after get down to the signing the papers, that's when the emotions flare up, and suddenly the petty things start coming up, and people start arguing over things that they shouldn't be arguing with. So it's an emotional experience, right?
Right, and it's a process that can't be cut short. I mean, very often you look at, again, if the parties are represented, sometimes they'll file a mediation brief, right? They'll set out what their positions are. And you can look at it, and you can pretty well predict where you're going to end up, right? And so it seems like you think that, well, we ought to be able to go in here and take care of this in a couple, we should be done before lunch, right? This is obvious. It's not how it works. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to go through the dance. You have to let everybody say their say. You need to sit with them and be with them and let them get out. And a lot of what they want to talk about is maybe not necessarily what end up being the important legal or financial issues, but it's not just a business negotiation. It's very emotional, and sometimes, certainly once it gets to be close to 11 o'clock at night, you bring out the old line, which is, we can be done with this today. No, What we are offering you is you can be done with your divorce today.
It's powerful.
Yeah, which is very powerful. That's the most powerful part of mediation, because the worst part of all of it, they've been, more often than not, there's been a whole long history of, should I stay in the marriage? Should I get divorced? Am I going to move out? Or am I going to file for divorce? And it's been going on for a very, very long time. And what mediation can do, unlike the court system, is say, we can be done today.
I can't tell you the sense of relief.
Such an excellent point.
Yeah. Lori, I can't tell you.
Like weight off the shoulders.
Yes. Well, along those lines, getting weight off your shoulders, when you walk out of a successful mediation, I can't tell you how happy you are.
Right.
I mean, as an attorney, I'm very happy, and the clients just change. Suddenly, they kind of like come back to being normal again.
Right.
You know, they're not this really tense, person that you can't break through, and so it's a really beautiful moment when it happens. With the process of going through the divorce, and the number of steps you have to take to get a judgment of dissolution, there's basically two paths. One is you got to go to trial, or the other two you settle, right?
Right.
And we just described a process that could take all day long, and the cost that's involved with that. But Gary, can you talk about the cost of that versus the cost of going to trial on a multi-day trial?
I mean, it may seem like, gee, I'm going to spend 10 hours of mediation. That's nothing to getting ready to go to trial, because you have pre-trial conferences, you have the trial itself, you have post-trial motions, you could have an appeal, and it could cost 10 times as much to go to trial to get the same result.
Yeah.
Or a worse result.
Right.
I mean, the result's not going to be as good. It's just not as a result that you agree on. Certainly it is barely possible that one side can win the trial, right? That, maybe we're fighting over a, multi-million-dollar asset, and maybe there's a clear winner and maybe there's a clear loser. And okay, maybe in that situation, somebody wins the trial after spending a whole lot of money, a whole lot of angst, a whole lot of time. But you have a loser. If there are children involved, you've got the parents at odds forever after.
Right.
And those cases are quite rare.
Yeah.
And I think mediation is the first opportunity that these people can begin to work together again to prepare for their post-divorce life and sharing children, maybe sharing assets, where trial is not the place to be at all for that.
Yeah, Gary, speaking of costs again, have you ever had a client that newly retained and say, this retainer is going to cover all of it, right?
That's what they think. Yes, I have.
Right, and the honest answer is, we can't predict the future, right? But if you're going to go to trial, or Lori, if somebody's going to be, uncooperative, and of course it's not my clients, but if the other side's going to be uncooperative, which we have no control over, that thing could snowball, and who knows? So asking somebody how much your divorce is going to cost is kind of a question that can't be answered. And if we're being honest, we have to say we don't know, right?
Yeah. No idea.
Yeah, then you also have maybe one spouse is completely scared out of their minds, and they're afraid to change, and so they'll do anything they can to drag their feet.
Oh my God, that's a great point.
Right.
You know what, I would say this, and I don't know if the two of you would concur with this, but of all the emotions that I see, fear is the biggest one, and it's whether it's on both sides usually. The one who wants the divorce, and if the other one doesn't want it, even the one that wants divorce has fear because the future is unknown. You have this trajectory of your life. We're married, we're living together, we have this house. This is our family, our combined family. These are our friends. These are our investments, and everything's hunky-dory in my mind about the plan, and suddenly that's going out, and I've got to look at now living a completely different life, and there's just a natural fear like that. Right.
Oh, such a great point. And how many times have I been in court and there's a hearing on something, right? And I rule on what's before me, and okay, we're done. Thank you for coming. Goodbye. We're done. And one of the parties said, well, what about this? That's not before me today. Well, what? But I'm really worried about this. I'm sorry, that's not before me today. You're going to have to file
reschedule.
papers. We're going to have to reschedule. Whereas in mediation, all those things. You get to bring up all those things that are worrying you. You know, well, what about this? Well, okay, what about that? What are you worried about that? What's your biggest concern about that, and how can we address it? Right? And that's a huge.
That's huge.
Huge.
It's
It's
your problem
huge.
solvers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really allows for creativity. I know
yes.
both of you are very creative
Right.
people. So could you describe some of the ways that you can be creative in mediation that you can't while you're sitting on the bench?
Well, as I mentioned, I think a few minutes ago, just the chance of individuals keeping a house for the children and the individuals moving in and out of the house, allowing the children to continue to live there and go to the same schools. I mean, that's really thinking outside the box. The court cannot do that. Or just all sorts of ways of skewing the division of property so the children really benefit from that, or the other spouse benefits from that.
Right. I participated in a mediation where the house was owned by wife before marriage, but husband really wanted to keep the house. Meanwhile, wife had a government pension that she really, really wanted to not share. Okay, if we had had a trial, wife is going to have to give up part of her pension, and husband is not going to get that house because it was wife's before marriage. But in a mediation, they were able to work it out. So wife was like, okay, you buy me out of the house, and meanwhile, I keep my pension. Done, done, done.
So that's a classic
Yeah.
example, I think, of the benefit of mediation is that you can be creative and
Right.
you can do so many things that you can't do if you're going to bring it to trial.
Right.
You know, and those people got a custom-made order
Right.
in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
Well, they got an order that they couldn't get from the court.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a reward for playing nice.
But one thing you have to be careful of in mediation is if you have a family unit where one person's been the strong person in the family unit and the other person has not.
Yes, I was actually just thinking about
As
that.
mediators, we have to be conscious of one spouse continuing to be overbearing on the other spouse and protect that spouse from that happening.
Yeah, because maybe that one spouse is used to having, not really knowing about financial,
Right.
not really knowing about how, whatever debt has occurred or whatever, So that makes a good point. And
Yeah.
she's used to he just used to just kind of going along with things
Right.
and not having such a voice.
Right.
Right, and similarly, if you're in mediation, don't be too deferential to the mediator. You know, I mean, we're here to help. We're here to offer ideas, but we are not here to steamroll you. This is your life. These are your kids. This is your property. So we might think it's the best solution ever, but if it's really not sitting right in your gut, you know, you need to.
A lot of people get confused thinking that the mediators are also the ones that could be making the decisions, right? Can you talk about that the difference between you being as a mediator versus the power of deciding?
Well, the mediator is there to help. Mediator is there to facilitate, to provide an outside eye, to provide idea. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. We've seen a lot of divorces. We've seen a lot of creative solutions. So we can offer you some ideas. But what I tell everybody is nobody knows your family like you know. Nobody knows your finances like you do. Nobody knows your situation like you do. And so I'm depending on you to tell me if this is going to work for you.
Yeah.
And what your needs are.
Right.
Because the needs may be special and can't be addressed simply by paying money.
Absolutely. Well, Lori, you just brought up something about when it's a lopsided strength in the relationship, or somebody's more dominant and somebody's more controlling. A frequent thing I hear, Gary, and I'm sure that you did, when doing consultations, is my spouse is a narcissist. really mean, and controlling, but man, he or she can really schmooze the other side, right? He's got the gift of gab. Can go over there and just really, and I'm just afraid that if we get in the mediation, the mediator is just going to gravitate towards, him or her, and it's going to be lost, before we even start.
But
What do you say about that?
That's another reason maybe in those cases to keep the parties separate.
Right.
So the mediator goes back and forth between the parties. So the parties feel like that they're not subject to the other spouse's.
Well, yeah, because it could be intimidating.
Right. And also, if I may timidly suggest that some of the best money you can spend in your divorce is to hire yourself a lawyer. Right? I mean, I know that both of you have had people come to you when it's over and it's gone terribly and they've agreed to something that they don't like, and now they're like, oh, can you get me out of this? Right. Well, maybe you can and maybe you can't, but it's going to be a lot more expensive than if they hired you in the first place. And I really feel like the optimum situation is if you've got yourself a lawyer and you take your lawyer with you to mediation. I feel like that's really the best case scenario.
Okay, can you expound on that?
Well, because your lawyer is going to be looking out for your rights. Your lawyer knows what your rights are. Your lawyer knows your situation, right? And is going to make sure that you don't get stonewalled, going to make sure you don't get overwhelmed. And it is going to address any kind of power imbalance, any emotional, financial power imbalance.
Yeah, family law is not as simple as it seems, right, Gary? I mean, there's a lot of complexity. No. You have 150 years of California law, that's been changed constantly within the appellate court decisions, the code, and it's way more complex than you think, And so, what I tell Gary, and I'm sure you said this to your clients, is look, I love mediation because I'm not doing all the work, the mediator is, but I'm here to give you some guidance, because I do know the law and I know how it plays in court. And you're not going to have that benefit if you go in there and you just like you said, the mediator is not going to be advocating for you. The mediator is going to be trying to help you come to a decision.
But the mediator is going to facilitate the communication between the two lawyers to come to an agreement.
Right.
So the client doesn't feel, oh, my lawyer is too buddy-buddy with the other lawyer, so what's going on here?
Right.
Yeah, what do you think about people bringing family members into mediation? Or how about a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend?
That's the
no.
best. Bring in the new boyfriend.
Yeah, bring in the new boyfriend and girlfriend.
That's
That'll
really
go
great.
well. That'll be terrific. No, I would not encourage that. I don't believe.
Are there any early signs that mediation should happen within a couple?
If you filed for divorce, that's an early sign that mediation should happen.
Okay.
Here's a statistic you're going to love, Lori.
Yeah.
95% of all people going through a divorce will settle their case.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the question is at what stage and how much pain do they have to go through before they get there? I mean, the longest case that I personally have had, a woman came into my office and she'd been going through a divorce for 11 years. Yeah. She had 5 prior attorneys, and you're going to call me crazy, but I took the case.
You are crazy.
Thank you. No. Yeah, I thought so. But after 2 more years, we got the case settled and stuff. But it's one of those things where it can go on forever, and stuff. And the people, if they had been put in the hands of some skilled mediators, could have probably taken care of that case within a year or 2, and stuff. And so, they should right from the beginning understand that the law and the public policy is that we want you to settle. The courts really want you to settle because it's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You notice that. Can't think of one offhand, but recently there have been several very high-profile divorces, like in Hollywood, where the same day they filed for divorce, they also filed their settlement agreement and their judgment.
Amazing.
They've done all of it, beforehand, privately. See, that's another real benefit. It's private. Remember, court hearings are public and court filings are public, and mediation is private, and that's another nice benefit.
That is huge. I didn't know that. I thought you would have to submit it to the court.
Well, your judgment is going to be a public record, but but all of the proceedings
not all the nasty stuff.
Not all the nasty.
I have a client that had some of his text messages brought into the record.
Right.
And of course his kids are going to be able to see that, the world's going to be able to see it. Where if they go to the mediation, you can keep all that stuff out.
Right. And that's
or you can bring it to mediation, but it doesn't go beyond the mediation.
Right.
Great. So do you have, Gary, any final thoughts before to be continued?
If your case is subject to mediation, you have to be willing to agree and be willing to not demand to win everything.
Right. Right. sometimes we say, Don talks about people being happy when they leave mediation, and that's true, that is often true, but there's also a saying in the mediation business, which is, you know, you have a good settlement when nobody's happy.
Right.
You know, everybody has to give a little.
Yeah.
So be prepared to give a little. If you are willing to give a little, I think what you will find is that you will gain a lot more in the long run in terms of peace of mind in terms of better relations with your children, and even better relations with your former spouse.
That was wonderful. So thank you again for joining
Thanks
us.
for having
Thanks for
us.
having
Mary
us.
Lou and Gary, mediators for Alternative Resolution Center. They're also part of a group that are the sponsors of the Pasadena Bar Association. So we're very proud to have you here on our show, and we hope that you
All right.
come back
All right.
sometime
Thanks for
again.
having us.
We
Thank
will.
you.
All right,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Mediation isn't just about conflict. It's about choosing a process that honors emotional well-being, reduces the unnecessary stress, and keeps family focused on moving forward instead of fighting. If today's discussion was helpful, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Talkin Divorce Pasadena so you can stay connected to future episodes and resources that are designed to support you wherever you are in your journey in life. And we'll see you next time.